Hey guys, today I'm working under the hood of my 1998 Lexus ES300 with the 3-liter V6, and I will be showing you how to remove and replace its radiator. Here's everything that you guys will need for this job. Starting with the tools, we have our 10, 12, and 19 millimeter wrenches. I have a pair of pliers for coolant hoses, a little prying tool for removing plastic clips. This is a special spill-free funnel. It's going to be used for purging the air out of the cooling system. A gallon of distilled water. You may want to pick up 2 just to help with mixing the coolant, which is Toyota Red, and it's concentrated, so you need to mix this with distilled water half and half. On the right hand side, I have a container for catching any of that old coolant, and a simple drain pan just so we don't have any spills. This is the radiator I'm going to be using in this video. I highly recommend you pick up the exact same unit. Alright, so I'm going to start by removing the cover underneath the car. There is just enough clearance to get to everything if you have the stock suspension. Unless your car is lowered, there is really no issue getting under here, but you could raise it up just to get more clearance. This 3-liter V6 was widely used by Toyota in a lot of its vehicles from the late 90s to early 2000s. And as a result, this procedure will be almost identical for all of them. Now just go through and remove all the bolts. One behind the cover. I'm going to start by undoing the drain bolt at the bottom of the radiator. Position your drain pan to catch all the remaining fluid. I'm going to move over to the automatic transmission lines. So one tip that I learned from Eric the car guy is to use spark plugs like this to block off the line. Get your spark plug. Insert right inside the hose. As you can see, no leaks. The other one. Undo the clip. We can move over to the lower radiator hose located right here. In order for us to remove the radiator from the top, we're going to need to get access to the top supports, which are right here and here. To remove clips like this that hold the cover down, all you want to do is get something sharp, get right in between the clip, just like that, and pop the middle insert out. And in order to get the base, just lift up on the cover and the clip will come out. With all the clips removed, just lift up on the cover, and you might need to clear the hood release in order to remove it. Same thing with this clip. Now we should be able to move the radiator hose back. Now these are the 2 connections that hold the radiator at the top, and they're 12 millimeter. I like to reinstall all the fasteners that I remove so that I know where they came from. One of the only things that's left holding this radiator in place are some of these electrical connectors you see here. With the left side undone, I'm going to do the right side right by the battery, and it helps to remove this fuse box that's a little bit in the way. So the electrical connectors are right here, and there's one a little bit lower. Okay, so let's see if we got it all. So with the radiator out of the car, you can get a much better idea of all the bottom connections. Here is our coolant lines sticking out that we removed earlier. This is the bottom radiator connection. This is the drain bolt. This is a temperature sensor that we're going to need to transfer over. And these are the rubber insulators for the radiator. all these fans will also need to be transferred over to the new radiator. Now, one of the components that I have to move over to the new radiator is my coolant sensor right here. To start off, I'm going to press on the tab to remove the wire and get it out of the way. Next, you're going to need a 19mm wrench to break it loose. And once it's loose enough, you can just turn it by hand to remove it all the way. When you do get it out, make sure that it still has its O-ring, as that's going to be very important for sealing it in place. I'm just going to reinstall the sensor and retighten it. Now when you do tighten it back up, be careful because you're installing this metal piece into a plastic housing, so you don't want to over tighten this component, as it will damage the threads and possibly break the housing. Now that's about right, so I'm going to leave it this way and just put the wire back on. That's it. Once you have the two bolts disconnected at the top, lift up on this fan and you should be able to remove it. In order to get the wire completely off the radiator, get a flathead screwdriver and pry on the tabs in the middle. Now to remove the other fan, you'll notice that it's actually made out of metal, and you may find that your vehicle has a lot of corrosion down here, just like mine. I had some trouble removing the bottom bolt and it actually broke off when I was transferring it over. So for the time being, I have installed a new bolt at the bottom and at the top, and I'm missing one up in the top corner, which I will replace later on. This is the inside section of my broken radiator, and as you can see, the fins in this area have completely been destroyed and have been leaking coolant right in this corner. Now, as a final check, we have the two fans secured in place. We have our coolant sensor transferred over with the wire connected, and we have the bottom rubber supports in place for our reinstallation. So we're ready to put this back on the vehicle. Now be careful as you're putting this back in the vehicle, as the radiator is very fragile and you don't want to damage any fins while you're putting it back in. Once the radiator has been seated in its place, we can go ahead and reinstall the top supports to secure it to the car. Pull back the radiator, reinstall the bracket, and you can reinstall the bolt that holds it down, and you can tighten it back up. We're going to move over to our electrical connectors. I'm going to start at the bottom with the coolant temperature sensor right here. Just click that back in, take our fan connector and reconnect that as well, and we can put the relay and fuse cover back onto the vehicle here. Now don't forget to reconnect your other fan on the other side, just like so. I'm going to start with the radiator hose right here. Now I like to get the clamps back in the original position that they were in, as this should prevent any future leaks. I'm going to start with the first transmission line, and be careful as fluid will start coming out right away. I'm going to move the clip back into place. Let's get our last transmission line connected. Finally move the clip back into place, and I like to put them back where they were with the memory already visible in this hose. Now before I reinstall the splash shield, I'm going to go in with some anti-seize and some wire brushes and clean up all these bolts from the rust corrosion they have experienced. Now a little bit of this anti-seize will help the bolts from sticking and being hard to remove in the future. Now with the bolts prepared, I'm ready to reinstall the bottom splash shield. This is going to be the front of the vehicle facing this way, and as you can see, there's going to be some residue from the coolant, so it's telling me how to reinstall this cover back in. You're going to start with the outer bolts here and right over there, and then work your way in, reinstalling all the other ones. So we're looking at the driver's side tire right here. I'm going to reinstall the cover in place behind the splash shield. Reinstall the first bolt. Once you get this cover reinstalled under this plastic splash shield, just tighten it up and you can work your way in installing the 3 bolts on the outside and aligning the cover to get them all secure. Once you have everything securely connected at the bottom, the splash shield installed and all the connections redone at the top, we're going to go ahead and reinstall this top plastic cover. We're going to work right underneath the hood release right here, and it should just drop right into place. Now there's 2 types of pins that you're going to be reinstalling. There's going to be one like this and one like this, and in order to help you reinstall, you want to get them in this position with the middle pin extended as much as you can, because you're going to be pressing the spider pin back in just like that. And then push it back down. Same with these pins. Now next you want to go in and reconnect your coolant hose at the top. Simply slide it back on and you should have a reference mark facing up. Then just grab the pliers. Squeeze this. Now this one was much easier to do than the top, so be warned. Once we have everything securely reconnected, you're going to be left with filling the system, and for this step I highly recommend that you pick up one of these Lyle spill-free funnels, and I'll put a link in the description on where to get them, but they have been a complete lifesaver for burping the system of air and filling it up with no problem whatsoever. It comes with a big funnel just like this and lots of adapters for any kind of cooling system that you might have. So the way that this funnel works is you have to remove your original radiator cap and install an adapter that fits in just like a radiator cap but with an opening for a funnel. As you can see, it's very much the same. You simply pick the right adapter, put it in, slide the cap over, close it up, put the funnel on top, and we're ready to fill it up. To do this job right, you want to pick up the right type of coolant, and here I have the factory red from Toyota. It's concentrated, so you need to add distilled water for a 50-50 mix, and as you can see here, I have already done so, but it's the best coolant that I've found for this vehicle, and just make sure that whatever you use complies with your owner's manual. Now, in order to burp the air out of the system, we're going to need to leave some coolant inside this funnel, so fill it up about a quarter way. I'm going to go ahead and start the car and run the engine at about 2,000 to 3,000 RPM until it completely warms up and all of our cooling fans turn on. As you can see, a lot of the air bubbles are already escaping, but we're going to wait until the engine completely warms up and coolant is starting to circulate throughout the engine. This is very important because the thermostat does not open until the engine is warm enough, and it will stop the coolant from traveling throughout the whole system. Now while the engine is warming up, you want to get it into the hottest setting on the AC controls, and you want to turn off the AC compressor so that it doesn't kick on. The temperature needle is slowly climbing and it should stay at just about the midpoint. Run the engine until the fans kick on. It may help to speed up the process by holding down the throttle body if you can. As you can see, both fans are spinning, so we can finish up this process. The needle is staying right in the middle, so we know the engine is not overheating. The fans have kicked on, and all the air bubbles have come out. Once the engine has cooled down, we're ready to remove the funnel. Now, to stop it from overflowing, you're going to use the plunger that comes with the kit and squeeze your top radiator hose as you insert it into the middle of the funnel. This will prevent from liquid coming out of it as you remove the funnel. And you can take this extra fluid and put it into your overflow tank. Reinstall the original cap. Make sure that's secure. I'm going to go ahead and add some more coolant to the overflow tank so that it goes up to the full line. Now this concludes the radiator and coolant replacement. We have purged the air out of the system, so everything's good to go. And for the next week, I would just recommend that you monitor your overflow tank to make sure that it doesn't drop too low. Now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.